love talking about the tech vampires because they're taking over, and they're everywhere. And the other day, I think it was Friday, Palantir was in the news because there was a possible real story. There's a lot of conflict on whether or not this is real or not. You want to pull up that New York Times story or whatever, wherever we saw it, about Palantir and the White House, which shouldn't surprise anyone who's been paying attention. So I'm going to attempt to read this with my squinty old man eyes. Trump taps Palantir to compile data on Americans. So this is in the New York Times, right?
This is?
Is this where we're at?
I think it's in New York. Yeah, it's in New York Times.
So we got to read this with a grain of salt. This is the New York Times. They have a long history of lying. A lot. They've won Pulitzers for lying. One of their reporters went to Russia or the Soviet Union and said there was no famine. No one was starving when Stalin was over there. That was a lie, and he won a Pulitzer for it anyway. So I just say that to know when we're reading the New York Times, they tend to be fake and they tend to be liars. But the reason I was thinking there's probably a modicum of truth to this is just knowing the history of Palantir and Trump and the surveillance state that Palantir has been helping to create since the Patriot Act, since around, I believe, 2003. So let's read a little bit of this article, see what these guys are saying. In March, President Trump signed an executive order calling for the federal government to share data across agencies, raising questions over whether he might compile a master list of personal information on Americans that could give him untold surveillance power. Okay, that does sound a little scary. Mm-hmm. I also understand the benefits of streamlining this across agencies for a lot of reasons. When it comes to, people will say to help with fraud, to help with the immigration issues, which Palantir has done a lot of. But I'll continue. Mr. Trump has not. Why did they not say president? I guess maybe because they said it in the first paragraph. Anyway, Mr. Trump has not publicly talked about the effort since, but behind the scenes, officials have quietly put technological building blocks into place to enable his plan. In particular, they have turned to one company, Palantir, the data analysis and technology firm, headed by vampires. It does not say that. I included that. The Trump administration has expanded Palantir's work across the federal government in recent months. The company has received more than $113 million in federal government spending since Mr. Trump took office, according to public records, including additional funds from existing contracts, as well as new contracts with the Department of Homeland Security and the Pentagon. This does not include a $795 million contract that the Department of Defense awarded the company last week, which has not been spent. Representatives of Palantir are also speaking to at least two other agencies, the Social Security Administration and the Internal Revenue Service, my favorite of all of them, about buying its technology, according to its 6 government officials and Palantir employees with knowledge of the discussions. And of course, take this with a grain of salt. Nothing I've seen here is like totally confirmed. I haven't seen Palantir confirm this. I haven't seen Trump talk about this.
So where does New York Times get this?
So where does New York Times get this from? This is great. And they're probably also trying to sow discord amongst the MAGA people who do care about things like the surveillance state, and amongst the left who all of a sudden cares about the surveillance state, although both sides have been in love with it for quite some time. But the truth is, this has been underway for decades. Palantir, like I said, has been working hand in hand with the Patriot Act since 2003. As a data analysis firm, they've been using their AI, their data analyzing to scrape through everyone's data. And that has built into 2017, I believe it was, when they took over Project Maven. Maybe we should pull up Project Maven while I'm talking, sure. MAVEN, which was a major defense contract. So it's like, this is nothing new. It's why I'm not surprised that this might be real is because Palantir has been making a ton of money from the government and the DOD for 20 years. Do you see Project Maven?
Well, do you want the Wikipedia?
Let's see what Wikipedia says. Because I'm sure there's a bunch of different things, and Wikipedia will be a funny little source to use. officially, what is this? Algorithmic Warfare Cross-Functional Team. Is a Pentagon project involving using machine learning and data fusion to process data from many sources, identify potential targets, display information through its interface, and transmit human decisions to weapon systems, among other functions. So they've been deeply embedded with the government for a long time, which is why when I saw the Palantir story that came out on Friday, I was not surprised. This is what they do. They are the military-industrial complex. They are a part of the Pentagon. The Pentagon has been using them for a very long time. So this is the logical next step of a place like Palantir, which is just one of many of these places doing this sorts of thing with the government, which I find to be reprehensible. You know, I know there's short-term benefits to a lot of this stuff. And we'll get into that as I go on. But the risks that are going to come through this, like the totally ballooning the surveillance state, is terrifying. And it should terrify you too. And on top of all that, Palantir is the CIA. When Palantir needed funding when they started, the CIA's venture capitalist firm, In-Q-Tel, that's what funded Palantir. So they are the CIA. They are the government. They are the military-industrial complex. And that this is just the next step in what they're doing. So I don't know yet if this story is confirmed, but it feels like what's probably going to be happening if it hasn't happened already. And I'm not going to read more of that New York Times article, but I do know the Biden administration gave a ton of money to Palantir. They've worked with every administration. Allegedly, they worked with the Obama administration to find Osama bin Laden. You know, who knows? They're all pretty glib about that being a reality or not. So I want to get into that and then kind of give a broader context, because I feel like I talk about Palantir or Teal or my concerns with Elon and the technocrats a lot, and I just figured, why not on our 50th episode give a little more context and just show you where I'm coming from. And then if you guys disagree or agree, you got other things you want to share, send us stuff in the chat, and we'll get to them afterwards. So why do I call them a tech vampire? Because they're a monster. These people are monsters, and they pretend to be human, and they feed off of you. They feed off of your livelihood. They feed off of your fear. They feed off of your dreams. They feed off of your data. Data to them is the new gold. This is the gold rush, but data is the thing they're after. That is everything to them. Their entire business model, Palantir, but all these places that we're going to get into need your data. They feed off your data. So they are literally latching onto you with their digital fangs and sucking you dry. And I should say, Peter Thiel, the CEO, the guy who started Palantir, is probably the most vampiric of them all, because he does inject, or he did, young men's blood into his body to stay alive for
And he
longer.
looks like he does it too.
He sweats blood, Brandon.
Well,
Like
he
when
does
you
have
look at his
glowing
face,
skin.
he's like, he's got like those crazy eyes, you know, like he's like, yeah, you're next, you know,
There's
like
something wrong with that man. And it that was so it was the company was called Ambrosia, which means
Right.
the food of the gods,
Right.
the fruit of the gods. And it was based off of, I wrote down here somewhere, parabiosis studies, which is when they I don't know, they probably still do. Scientists would study parabiosis by sewing an old dying mouse to a young mouse. And they would observe the old mouse getting better. I don't want to say younger, but better. The weird thing was the young mice would age rapidly all of a sudden. And allegedly Ambrosia was using that study, which happened at Stanford in the early 2000s. One of the places they started doing it was at Stanford, which also happens to be where Peter Thiel went to college. So that was $8,000 for a bag of blood from a young man between the ages of 16 and 25.
that mouse thing is the law of equivalent exchange.
Tell us about it.
Basically, it's the idea basically that in order to take something, you have to give something of equal or lesser value, you know,
Yep.
or whatever. But the exchange has to take place. So it's almost like, you know, karmatically, like, you know, I trip you and you fall down the stairs. Oh, hey, you know, like, and
Yes.
then, you know, depending on how the universe works or the energies work, at some point in the next, you know, X amount of time, you find yourself to suffer a similar injury, and somebody
Right.
trips you down the stairs, and you're like, what the hell, did I deserve that? And
Right.
it's the universe taking its half back from what you took.
Yo, 100%, 100%. But and there's people that like that idea because in the short term, they can benefit from it.
Yeah.
Although their short term is different because I call them vampires not just because they're using their fangs to eat our data and to eat us alive, but because they're transhumanists and they want to live forever. And injecting blood into your body is a transhumanist idea of wanting to defeat God's
It's
idea.
also a vampiric idea.
That is literally vampiric. I could go down, other transhumanists who have other ideas. Like last time you were on talking about Ray Kurzweil a little bit, who has another idea of being immortal by uploading his consciousness. Whatever that means, what is it? I don't want to sound too Jordan Peterson. What do you mean by consciousness? But he has this idea of being able to basically surf amongst servers with his so-called consciousness to live forever. There's other ideas like cryogenically freezing yourself and other things. But for Teal, he is the closest to a vampire on this one. But like Alex Karp, who's also was the CEO of Palantir, he's a vampire. Elon Musk is a vampire. Mark Andreessen is a vampire. Reid Hoffman's a vampire. Sam Altman is certainly a vampire. Larry Ellison, a vampire. But the thing that makes him a little different than vampires, than vampire mythology, is that vampires typically had to get permission to get into your house. You had to knock, and be invited in.
Yeah, you have to be invited in.
These people built a way to get right into your entire life and also are working on a way to get into your brain constantly. I'm not just talking about Neuralink, which we'll talk about too.
But also, we are willing to let them in.
Oh, yeah. We've invited it.
So we have invited it.
We have invited it. Yep, you're right. You're right.
That's that little disclaimer that you click before you go into the website.
True.
That just says, hey, do you care if we share, your immediate privacy information with third party? And it's just asterisk in general, third party. It could be anybody.
Well, it's all technology. It's your phones. It's like your Amazon thingy mabob that you talk to.
Alexa.
Yep. And it's unavoidable, unfortunately. So like, I don't think there's anything we can do to stop it unless we want to reject it. I'll get into that in a little bit, but like, in what you're saying, with giving up, you're sacrificing your data when you click on, you're agreeing to use a social media platform. We'll use social media platform. There was a recent Facebook Meta whistleblower who said something like, and we might have discussed this, Brandon, when you were on last time too. Basically, they'll target people, and they'll target them by like, okay, this young girl will say, 17-year-old girl, put up a selfie on Facebook and then deleted it. And so their AI, who's constantly scouring everything on their platform, says, oh, she must be depressed because she didn't like the way it looked or something. So then they immediately, this is what the whistleblower said when she testified this early April. They send it right to the advertisers and say, hey, this girl's depressed. You should sell something to her because when you're depressed, you buy things. Mm-hmm. And that's what they were doing, which that's just one little
pharmaceutical ads for depression medication.
Yep. And they'll do it. They'll study your entire feed, your algorithm, what you're looking at, and they will personalize everything to that. People have been joking about that for a long time. It's like when we found out we were having a kid, like literally the moment Nancy told me she was pregnant with our first, it's like 9 years ago, I suddenly got ads online for diapers. And a crib. Mm-hmm. I never looked at that before, ever. So there's that.